This is Trout Mask Replica. On the album cover is Captain Beefheart, a fish on his face and a top hat on his head. The image is surreal, it's grotesque, and it's the perfect visual depiction of the music you're about to hear.
My smile is stuck. I cannot go back to your frown land.
The 80 minutes of music on Trout Mask Replica by Captain Beefheart and his magic band have been compared to rusty barbed wire. And the New York Times once said that Captain Beefheart's voice makes Tom Waits sound like Julie Andrews. But here's the thing. 41 years after its release in 1969, this cacophonous double album was inducted into the Library of Congress's National Recording Registry, right alongside Al Green's classic Let's Stay Together and the American standard Take Me Out to the Ballgame. Not only that, a number of iconic musicians, visual artists, and creative thinkers have named Trout Mask Replica a shining point of inspiration for their work. How can an album that sounds like the musical equivalent of barbed wire be recognized as such a significant piece of American culture? Let's start with Don Van Vliet, known as Captain Beefheart. He grew up in California on the edge of the Mojave Desert and by the age of 10 was an incredible sculptor. Growing up, he became captivated by the blues, perfected by musicians like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf, some 2,000 miles away in the Mississippi Delta. Just as much, he was entranced by the free jazz of Ornette Coleman and John Coltrane. By the late 1960s, he had an album and a small-time hit, a cover of Bo Diddley's Diddy Wah Diddy. For his next project, he signed to his former high school classmate Frank Zappa's label with a clear request for unbridled creative freedom to do whatever the hell he wanted for his next project. By 1969, Trout Mask Replica was created, and those years were a glorious mess for everyone involved in its making.
Is that coming across?
This is Samuel Andreyev. He's a composer who studied composition and music analysis at the Paris Conservatory.
A number of things. First of all, it's an album that I'm personally obsessed with. I think it's a phenomenal work of art.
It is mind-bendingly creative and honestly pretty difficult to listen to, but its uniqueness can be discovered within its songs, especially Frownland.
Well, the purpose of Frownland as an album opener is to plunge you headfirst into a maelstrom of just absolute strangeness.
I cannot go back to your land of gloom, where black jagged shadows remind me of the coming of your doom. I want my own land.
Here's something interesting you can do as an experiment. Compare it to a piece like You Really Got Me by the Kinks. Okay, so the main guitar riff in that song, da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da, that's two notes, okay? And that's what the song is built out of.
The most important thing is that the rhythm guitar, lead guitar, bass, drums, and vocals are all locked into one rhythm. They're playing in sync.
So contrast that with Frownland, where in a minute and 40 seconds you have no fewer than, I think, like 23 individual motifs.
It's actually 21, but that's still a whole lot.
And these 23 motifs are all individually rather complex. Added to that is the fact that they're all heard stacked on top of each other all the time.
Not only that, the traditional roles of rock instrumentation found in songs like You Really Got Me were just completely thrown out the window. Just listen closely to the first 5 seconds of the track. You'll immediately notice that the rhythm is off kilter. That's because the rhythm guitar and the lead guitar are playing a 5/7 polyrhythm. That means one guitar is playing 5 beats per measure at the same time the other is playing 7. Okay, so try clapping 5 beats in one hand and the same time you clap 7 in another.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm pretty sure I did the same thing.
Not only is the piece polyrhythmic, it's also polytonal. Both guitars are playing in different keys throughout the piece against each other, and often they're changing keys. Typically, the bass would ground the harmony and the rhythm, but here it's treated like a third guitar, so it lives in its own world as well. And it's playing chords, which just rarely happens in rock music. And on top of that, you have these insanely virtuosic drums that have another function altogether.
The drummer is trying to take elements of what the guitar is doing and what the bass is doing and basically glue them together so that the piece coheres.
In the end, you have a really condensed song with multiple instruments constantly changing keys, tempos, and time signatures, and across the entire album, this happens.
Trout Mask Replica is a masterpiece because it does something that is almost impossibly hard to do. It comes from a very rare place of art making.
So, art scholars talk about the sentimental versus the naive. On one end of the spectrum, you have sentimental art that comes from a place of a lot of formal training. At the other end, you have naive art that is almost childlike. It exists purely because the compulsion to make it was so strong.
The great thing about Trout Mask Replica is that they literally splice together naive impulses into a structure. So it sounds totally improvised. It sounds like they're making it up on the spot, but they rehearsed these pieces. That's really hard to do.
How do you teach these musicians to play your music?
Whip. Kind whip. No, I mean, a kind quip. A kind, how? A tape, with the piano, a tape.
Captain Beefheart was the singular creative force behind Trout Mask Replica, and he composed every song on the piano without knowing how to play it. He pretty much didn't know how to play any instrument. But he had his magic band, which consisted of remarkable young musicians like Zoot Horn Rollo, Drumbo, and tenor Jimmy Simmons and Rockhead Morton. Their job? Translate Captain Beefheart's avant-garde approach into a blues and free jazz-inspired rock album based on the music he created on an instrument he really didn't know how to play. Let that sink in for a second. A piano has 88 keys, and with two hands you can easily play the lowest and the highest keys at the same time if you wanted to. Don Van Vliet expected those same sounds from his two guitarists and a bassist whose instrument ranges were just vastly different. Here's Bill Harkleroad. You might remember him as Zoot Horn Rollo.
I think it was just that there were parts, and then, well, why can't you play those notes? What's wrong with you? Why can't you play that note that's not on the guitar 7 notes at a time? So there was no choice to do it.
He used to say, "You think you got a hard job, man? I gotta sing to that shit."
And that is John French, the drummer. He had the arduous task of helping other members of the band learn everything that came out of Don's piano.
Sometimes I wondered if he knew that it was in a different time signature, but he didn't know what a time signature was, no.
They painstakingly rehearsed over the course of a year until they were able to record the entire double album all the way through in just a few hours.
Fast and bulbous.
Fast and bulbous.
Okay, do it again.
I love that. I love those words.
Fast and bulbous.
That's right, the mascara snake. Fast and bulbous.
Bulbous also tapered.
Yeah, but you've got to wait until I say. Also, a tin teardrop.
Oh, Christ.
When I first came across Trout Mask Replica, I was instantly captivated by the sound of those 3 words strung together. Every song title made me laugh, and so I listened to it. And it instantly expanded my understanding of what music could be.
For some people it can be offensive. It sounds like they're deliberately flaunting the rules. I don't view it that way. I don't think anyone's deliberately flaunting the rules. I don't think it's contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. I think rather what it is it's artistic for the sake of being original.
Hey all, thanks for watching. First I want to give a huge shout out to Samuel Andreyev. He was sort of the inspiration for this video. He made a 30-minute video about the music theory of Frauenland. That's linked below. You should really check it out if you want to know more about that specific song. In addition, he's the one that conducted the 2 interviews with John French and Bill Harkleroad. They're also on his YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.